Okay, we're going to talk about case 8, which is developing an Excel application, and you will learn how to protect a workbook or a worksheet, how to create validation rules for data entry, how to create and use defined names, create a macro, which we've created before, but we'll go over creating a macro again, and then assigning that macro to a button so you can click on the button and just run that macro. So when you open it, it'll start like this. You'll see up here at the top that it has you to enable the data. So you'll go ahead and click enable data. Now, the first thing it asks you to do is unlock cells B4 and 5. So you're going to right click. There's a lot of ways you can get to this, but I like to right click, and then I like to go to format cells. And then when it pops up, you're going to go all the way over to the far tab, which is protection, which I like to use. I like to right click and use this menu a lot. You can get to a lot of things by right clicking. But if you go to protection, you're going to see that these cells are locked. So you're going to hit to not have them locked. And then you're going to go ahead and hit OK. Now, let's go ahead and type in your name. So put your name in here. I'm just going to type name, and then, but you put your name, and then here we're going to go ahead and do the control and the semicolon to bring in the current date. Now you've unlocked those, but you haven't locked the rest of this sheet. So to show you the purpose of why you would unlock and lock things, let's go to review. And if you go to review, you're going to see protect sheet, protect workbook. Well, we just want to do this one sheet. So we're going to hit protect sheet. Now, it says protect worksheet and contents of locked cells. Select locked cells, select unlocked cells, and then if you don't want to be able to select certain ones, so you could say that they can only select protect work. Okay. Allow the users of this worksheet to select lock cells. Well, we don't want them to select lock cells, so we'll undo that. Now, I could go ahead and just put a password on here if I didn't want anybody to get into it, or I can just hit OK. Now, see how I cannot click anywhere in here and select any of these cells, but only these are the 2 cells that I could select. Now I could, and then I can hit unprotect sheet, and now you can see that I can select these cells. So I'm going to go ahead and protect the sheet back and hit OK. So now we finished what it wanted us to do on this cell. Now we're going to be using macros in this, and we haven't saved this yet, and we're going to be using macros. So we're going to have to do a file, and we're going to have to do a save as, and I'm going to go ahead and save this right to my desktop. So let's see, desktop, and we're going to change this case. It says case 8 and then username. So then we'll change this to our format that we're supposed to for everything that we save. Oh, I already have one named that. I'll just put some after it. Now make sure when it says save type as, you need to do Excel macro enabled workbook, or your macro is not going to work. So make sure that you save it as a macro enabled workbook. It might give you a warning about that, but that's okay. That's what we're going to do. So we'll go ahead and hit save on that. Now we're ready to move on to the other tabs, and we can use some macros later, like what we're going to. So let me look into the book here. So let's open the book up, and you can see we've done protect a workbook or a worksheet. We've done steps 1 and 2. Now we're ready to create validation rules. And I have put these little hints in your workbook to help you along if you need. So moving on, we're going to go on to new shipments, and we're going to create some validation rules. So we're going to click into cell C3 here, and we want to make it be a validation rule. So we're going to go to data, and then you'll see there's a section here, here, here. Keep going and all the way over to the data tools, and you're going to see data validation right there. So we'll click that, and then we're going to click data validation. And it says to make sure the number is between the range 5,000 and 6,500. So we're going to say whole numbers between, so we'll say 5,000, maximum is 65,000. So the good thing about this is that if somebody puts data below 5,000, you'll get an error, or if you go above 6,500, you're going to get an error. So let's go ahead and put in the messages that it told us to do. So we're going to go ahead and put, what's it want us to do? For validation, we're going to do clerk ID. Then it says go ahead and put in, enter the clerk ID. So apparently no clerk ID can be below 5,000 or above 6,500. Now they also want you to put an error message on so that if they enter something not between those numbers, they'll get an error message to go back and change that. So we'll go ahead and put in what they want us to put in. Invalid ID, and then we're going to come down here. We're going to put clerk ID must be between 5,000 and 6,500. And then we finish that one so we can hit OK. So we've got the validation rule on this one. Then they ask us to move on to the next one. And in the date, they want to make sure that it is a date past a certain date. So in this one, we're going to go back to validation again, data validation, and this time we're going to select date. And they want the date to be, was it greater than? Yeah, so we're going to do a greater than, and we're going to say it has to be greater than January 1st, 2009. Then for your title on that error message, it's going to say date of shipment. And then it's going to say enter the date the shipment occurred. Enter the date this shipment occurred. Now for the error message, we're going to have it come back and we're going to have it say invalid. Invalid ship date. And then we're going to say ship, oh goodness, let me fix that. We're going to say ship date must, oh my goodness, I have so much check, must occur after January 1st, 2009. And we've got that all in, so we're going to go ahead and hit OK. Now, we're ready to do the one for cell 5 right here. And we want to do a list on this one. So let's do the validation again. And we're going to go back to settings. This time we're going to pick the list option. And we have to select our source. It's telling us to select the values, the entire column E. So there's a VLOOKUP option put here below so that when we pick this source of this column here, that it's going to pull for VLOOKUP and pull in the rest of these items from the table for the 2 cells below. Now it says you go ahead and make up the input message and error message. So if we're kind of going along the same as we did before, then this would be like a product ID. And then you could say maybe use the drop down to select a product ID, because it's going to make a list. So maybe the drop down list to select, oh, I accident, oh, okay, select a product ID. Then you can come here and you can say product, or you can say invalid again, like it did on, you can say invalid product ID, like we did on the others. And then you can say it must be from the drop-down list. You must select from the drop-down list. Okay. All right, so now we've created all of our validation on these. So if we enter something in that is not correct, it won't let us hit enter and put it in. Then you can see that there is a VLOOKUP already set here. So when we select one item based off of this cell, you can see it's saying based off of C5, then whatever is in C5, it's going to pull the rest of this. So if we put CV, it's going to pull cover and the cost for the rest of these. So we don't want to accidentally mess up and delete these formulas out. Okay, so now if we go back and we look at the book, we have finished all of the create validation rules for data entry. And that's what I said here. You're going to not want to accidentally erase your formulas. Now we need to create some defined names. So we're going to put cost in units in C7 and then C8 respectively. So for C7, we want to name this as cost. So we're going to go to formulas. I think you could right click, let's see, to get to named. Yeah, you could right click and define the name right here. Or you can either go to formulas and then you can go to define name right here. So we're going to call this cost. And then the other one was C8, and we were going to name this one units. So we could right click and go to define name, and we could call this units and hit OK. So now they should have defined names, and if you look here, you'll see their defined names. Now, let's see, yep, it's going to have us create a formula. So we're going to come down here into C9, and we're going to create a formula that multiplies the unit times the unit shipped. So let's make sure that's what they want. Is, yeah, multiply cost by units. So we're going to go equal, then we'll do cost, click on it, then we're going to do times, and then we're going to click on units, and we're going to hit enter. Now it gives us an error code, but that's just because we don't have any data in here. So if you check, you should have nothing except the validations on here, all three of those. And when you click here, you should have your VLOOKUP formula in. Then you should have your VLOOKUP formula. This should have nothing because it's going to pull from, it's going to pull from what we type in. And then this should calculate based off of the formula that we put in. Okay, we just finished creating and use defined names. So we finished this step and we're ready to create our macro and record our macro. So before we start actually recording our macro, we're going to add this data into our, well, let me take this off. We're going to add it right here. So we're going to come back and we're going to do warehouse clerk ID, and it's going to be 5766. Then we're going to be 2/7/2009 for the date. Then on our drop down, we're going to select the IX, and it should pull in everything else except for our unit shipped, and we're going to go ahead and type in 100. Okay, now we've entered that data. Now we're going to create a macro so that every time we enter data, it'll do what we want it to do. So we're going to record our actions. So if I go back to the workbook, you're going to see that we've entered this. Now if we scroll down, we're ready to start doing these items, which is creating the new macro. Now there's some important things here that I put hints for that'll help you. And when you use the paste special command, you're going to also want to make sure you select values and transpose, or it'll mess up everything. So let's make sure we do that. Okay, so we're going to come back to our workbook, and we're going to go over to, I don't know which menu you're on up here at the top, but make sure you're on view here. And then you're going to go all the way over to the right to find macros. And you're going to hit, you could go to view and see what you have and add more. If you accidentally mess up, you might have to go to view macros to delete your macro. But we'll hit record macro. We're going to name it. And it said to name it new shipment. You could give it a keyboard shortcut, but since we're going to make a button, we don't have to do that. So we'll hit OK. Now, it used to, on your mouse, it used to turn into like a little recorder so you knew you were recording, but it doesn't do that anymore. But you are currently recording. So every action you do is being recorded as a macro. So we're going to go back to shipment history, and we're going to click on the 5 over here. When we click on the 5, you can see that it highlights the entire row, and we're going to insert a row. So right click and go to insert. Now we have a blank row right here. So we're going to come back to new shipments, and we want to highlight this information right here because we want to put it over there. So we're going to go ahead and hit copy, and then we're going to come back to our shipment history, and we're going to come right here. Now here's where it becomes really important not to mess up. So if you go back to, oops, not file, I meant to click on home. If you go back to home, you're going to see this paste right here, and I'm currently here in this cell, so I'm going to hit paste, and then this paste special right here. You want to make sure you're on paste special because you need to do a few things here. So you need to say values up here. If you say all, it's going to bring across formatting and other things that you don't want. So make sure you put only values, no formulas, no formatting, and then down here you want to hit transpose. Transpose means don't copy it down, but let's copy it across. And that's exactly what we want to do. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK, and you can see that it brought it in perfectly. If you get NAs right here, it means you forgot to select value in what we just did. So you'll have to go back and fix that. Okay, so that looks good. Now you're going to come back to your new shipment, and if I click out of that cell and it's still highlighted like that because I was copying it, if you just do a Control D to deselect, you can deselect that information. Now they want you to go ahead and, I guess I could have had it selected and just hit delete. So they want you to delete out information, but you need to be really careful here. So we want to delete out this record, delete this record. Now, and we can delete this, but you don't want to delete this or you'll delete your formula. And you don't want to delete this or you'll delete your formula or this. But you do want to go ahead and clear this out, because if you clear this out by hitting backspace, then it removes everything. So just hit backspace there to clear it out. So now I'm ready to stop recording my macro. So I'm going to go over to view again, go all the way to macro again, and I'm going to hit stop recording. Now my macro should be set to do everything I want. So I can put a button right here so that when I type it in and hit the button, it'll go ahead and put all of it into shipment history. So let's go back, and to make a button, you're going to go to Insert, and you're going to go to Shapes, and we're going to pick a rectangle shape, and then we're going to come right below. Let's try to do like maybe C11 to C12. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to try to put it right here. And the textbook has it as gray. I'll pick kind of this light blue. That looks fine. And then I'm going to just right click to hit edit text, and I'm going to add what they wanted me to, which was record new shipment. Now let's make this look nice. So let's click on it. Let's make the font as big as we can make it without going outside. Let's center it. Let's change it to a black text, and then that looks pretty good. If you want to change the font or something, you can do that. Okay, now that we have it created, we're going to select it again, and we're going to right click, and you're going to say assign macro right here, assign macro. And you're going to come in here, pick your new shipment, and hit OK. Now you've got it assigned. So if we go back and look at the textbook, and remember, if yours comes across as an NA in your shipment history, you forgot to do this paste special. So make sure you go back and look at what's underlined there in red. All right, so if we keep going down, we have done everything. We just want to test our macro now, so we're going to enter this data down here. So there looks like 2 data sets to enter to make sure that we've got it correctly. So let's go back and let's enter this data in and see if it works. So we're going to do 6,000, then we're going to hit enter, and we're going to do 3/1/2009, then we're going to do RPC, then we're going to go down and put in 50 units. I was using my enter key just to go down. Now I should be able to, let's see, enter down. Yeah, it's not going to let me do that. I'm going to have to actually do a click on this. Okay, so I click on it and look, it cleared it all out. Let's jump over here, and perfect. Everything came across nicely. Let's go ahead and do the final entry. So we'll do 588833/2009. Let's hit enter again. Now we're going to do the CV. Hit enter, and it should pull all that down using the VLOOKUP, and then the units is going to be 25 units. Going to come down, oh, I can hit enter to see that it brings in that formula. Then let's hit record new shipment, clears that all out, and perfect, it came across. Oh, one thing I wanted to show you in case you made a mistake and need to fix it. So if you go to view and you go to your macros, and just in case you messed up your macro, if you go to view macros right here, you can easily click on this and you can hit delete and you can start all over again. Also make sure that when you're selecting this, it wanted you to just put it in this workbook, but you could put it in all open workbooks, but it'd probably just be this workbook because it's the only one that has these items in it. Now, know that you can also click on it and you can hit edit, and it's going to take you into, let me show you the screen. It's going to take you into your Visual Basic editor. So if you go into, let's see, VBA code, so your Visual Basic application here, then you, if you know code, you could come in here and you could change some of these items or just fix it, or you could write your own macros here if you understand how to code macros. If not, then you're just gonna click back out of this and it'll take you back to your worksheet. But again, go to view macros and you can click on this one and you can hit delete to delete out so you can start again. Okay, that is it. Your workbook should look like this. You should have your documentation. This cell should be locked so you can't click around anywhere else. And you could lock this one as well. If I was going to do that, what I probably want to do is probably highlight all of these and go ahead and make sure they were unlocked, and then I could lock down the workbook. But that's not a requirement for this one. It was just on the documentation to show you how to do it. And so that is it for this one.